First up is the roll call. Council at large Cummins.
Here.
At large Postian.
Here.
Council Ward number 1 Hembry.
Here.
Ward number 2 Helm.
Here.
And Ward number 3 McNeil.
Here.
All right. The agenda. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So to the agenda, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
Cummins with first. Second. And McNeil with the second.
Postian,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Cummins, Hembry,
Yes.
Helm.
Yes.
All right, so communications, this would be where the public can address the council on any subject. So if anyone would like to address the council, you can step up to the podium and state your name for the record. Or if you're online, you can speak up right now. All right, since there is no one, we'll close that portion of the meeting and move on to the consent agenda. And these are items that can be enacted with one motion and no separate discussion. First, it's the approval of the council meeting minutes from November 9th, approval of the council meeting minutes from November 21st, the approval of the airport minutes from November 9th, approval of the development director's report of November and December, approval for pay application number 3 to North Avenue Reconstruction Project to All American Concrete in the amount of $5,106.25. Approval of a drip reimbursement to Mike Getz at Family Foods for $7,500. Approval of a trip reimbursement to the Tipton Golf and Country Club in the amount of $6,850. And finally, the approval of the claims register, which includes claims paid under the current purchase policy. Do any of these need to be pulled out? Seeing they don't, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Cummins with first.
Second.
And Helm with the second.
McNeil,
Yes.
Cummins, Hembry,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Postian.
Yes.
All right, so we'll move down to city business. And first up is the performance review of the city manager, Mr. Wagner.
Before tonight, I've never asked to have an evaluation done in open session. So why now? Generally, a person in my position would ask for a performance evaluation in closed session when the goal appears to be valid and constructive. On the other hand, you ask for an open session when you think the process will be unfair and unfounded. And that's what I think we have on the agenda tonight. Why do I think that? 3 things come to mind. First, part of it goes back to September when Tim came to City Hall looking for me, but ended up speaking to Melissa. I was told that he was angry and his voice carried well outside of her office. I'd like to ask Melissa to now go through her notes of that meeting.
This is dated Thursday, September 22nd, which is 4 days after the council meeting regarding the utility director agenda item. Around mid-morning, Tim stopped in looking for Brian. Brian was out looking at a street project with Steve. Tim came in to speak with me instead. Tim began by saying that they are mad about an email that I sent council on 9/20, which followed up on the agenda item related to the utilities director position on that Monday prior. Tim wanted us, Brian and myself, to talk to everyone before the council meeting about that specific item. I reminded him that I am not able to do that. He said that that email I sent earlier that week stated that I could. I explained to him that my email said I could only if council was going to go against the Iowa code, but I wasn't going to do that without their direction. Tim said that Brian's email said we blew it. He asked if that implied that the council did. I said that it could be interpreted that way. After further clarifying that with Brian, though, Brian was referring to everyone, not just the council. Tim stated he wanted a complete review of all employees and contracts at a meeting. He doesn't care if we bring in attorneys or not. I told him that I don't know if that was possible. I said that it could result in some meetings being done in a public session. He said he didn't care. I told him I don't think that we would want to do that. It wouldn't be a good look for the city. I asked him to clarify what he meant by a complete job review. He said he wanted a complete job review, including contracts and relationships to job performance. Tim also wondered what it had caused the city to lose recent employees. He mentioned talking to past employees who are recently no longer with the city. Due to the conversations having to deal with personnel matters, though I cannot elaborate more regarding this topic. Tim stated he wanted to change the city manager's title to city administrator. He wants the council to oversee all hiring and firing. He referenced a comment made by Brian at a previous council meeting about not being able to find a qualified candidate. He said the council wants to do that now. He mentioned that they want to take the HR duties away from myself as well, although he didn't know who would take over those responsibilities. Tim thinks that Brian is the reason the city is in such chaos, and it's because he isn't managing correctly. I stated I didn't think that was the case. He said that we're spending too much money in the electric department and we need to be governed by a board. I reminded him that someone tried to push that a couple years ago and it didn't pass to get on the ballot. I asked if they wanted Brian gone. Tim implied that that could be the case. He said they would start with a review of Brian and then move down the line if needed.
And just, what did you take down the line to mean?
Next employee, whoever that may be.
So as far as I know, Tim's issue with me concerns the Director of Utilities proposal that we brought up in September. Tim's memory of how that item got on the agenda was different from the rest of us at that same personnel meeting. Prior to that, I'm not aware of any problems between he and I. But since September, it's been his position that I need to be gone. Second, on November 17, I heard that Councilmember Hembry told both current and past city employees that, quote, "We're going to get rid of your little buddy." Me. He was referring to the November 21 city council meeting and my personnel evaluation that had been on the agenda before it was tabled. Did Ron's statements to others mean that a council decision had already been made outside of an open council meeting? Or was Ron speaking for others without their permission again? And third, last week, I was told of a fire call. Reportedly, one of the firemen made the statement that the low number of firemen on the scene meant that the city manager should be fired. If anything about tonight, and I don't know if there is or not, but if anything about tonight has to do with the fire department, I'd like to ask the council to step up and recall that the recent decisions related to that department were also based on the city attorney's advice and a 4-0 vote of the council. A mayor, city council, and city staff exist for the betterment of the community. Over the last 5.5 years, I think we've done a lot of good for Tipton, but there's still more to do. I'm hoping that some of the people that speak tonight will remind the council of some of those successes and upcoming challenges. Mayor.
All right, so I would also like to point out or remind everyone that during this performance review, that the city cannot and will not tolerate any defamatory, threatening, or obscene comments, nor will tolerate any incivility during this part of the meeting. If anyone were to violate any of those parameters, I would ask for them to leave or be escorted to leave. So with that being said, I will first open it up to any city employees, if you guys would like to speak. Linda? Yeah, I bet. Oh yeah, also, I'm not going to make everybody just walk up to the podium either. You can just,
Can I just sit here?
yes, you can.
So here are some facts that I would like to present regarding what Brian has done for my department, which has benefited our businesses and community. He has developed the TRIP application, the TIP grant, the residential revolving loan program, the business revolving loan program, the COVID emergency loan program, and the urban revitalization, the tax abatement and tax exemption program. Because of his expertise and guidance in my department, These are the grants we received. The Community Catalyst Grant for the Hardacre in the amount of $100,000. The Emergency Catalyst Grant for the Hardacre Theater in the amount of $100,000. The Downtown Housing Grant for the Rhinos Building in the amount of $200,000.
Yes.
The Community Catalyst Grant for the Rhinos Building first floor, $100,000. The $2 million federal grant for the Highway 38 project, besides the other grants that were received for that project. The Land and Water Grant for the green space in the amount of $75,000. The Wellmark Wellness Grant for the green space, $25,000. And the Community Foundation grant, the green space for $4,000. But this list goes on with the amount of money that he is saving us. He currently, and we all are working on the Cecil Burley Trail, Crooked Creek Trail, Highway 38, Rhinos Building, Hardacre Building, green space. We just turned in a grant for the Iowa Great Places. We've got 4 murals now in our community. When he came, there were none. And then with the derecho, he visioned these wood carvings for our community, which draw people from outside and all different states and counties. On the November 21st council agenda under city business item number 13, it stated discussion of residency restriction for city manager position. And this was a discussion only, and then that was taken off the agenda. But that item got me to thinking a little bit about other positions in our community. And so Cedar County's engineer does not live in our county. He drives here every day. Our Cedar County assessor does not live in our county. We have 3 principals in our school that do not live in our school district. Do I view that as bad? Absolutely not. Trending and residency requirements are changing, whether we like it or not. If we want someone that's going to be competent, professional, and know what they're doing, we have to look outside. Brian's knowledge and experience with city government is exceptional. He is dedicated to our community and has moved it forward with many new programs. Brian has inspired me to think outside of the box and always look for growth opportunities in the best interest in our community. Brian is a wonderful boss, and I have appreciated everything he has not only done for me, but for our community. Thank you.
All right. Any other employees? Well, yeah, you're airport manager. We'll go with you.
Get paid.
Yep.
Max Scopus, I live in Stanwood, but I take care of the airport. Since Brian has come, we've been in, let me back up. We've been in our improvement project for about 15 years, and we've experienced, I believe, 5 different city managers, Mr. Schrott, Mr. Bolt, Mr. Nosfish, our interim, forgot his name.
Tim Long.
Yeah, and Brian's the 5th one. And all those 5, there was one other city manager that ever attended any of our meetings, and that was Tim Wolf, the interim. They all supported the airport, as has the council. I appreciate that very much. Everything we've asked for, we've had a positive note from the council. Brian comes to every meeting that he is able to. His knowledge of the grant program, of the FAA personnel from his experience in past employment is exceptional. It's second to none for us. I'm speaking on a personal point. The committee, the airport committee, has not been able to discuss this at all, so I'm not going to speak for them. But I'm just totally in awe of everything he has done to help us. He's met with me in his office, questions we have, pointers, what to ask for in a grant. He's the first city manager here in Tipton that has ever offered any of that kind of information. And if something would happen to his employment, I think I'd be very sad. I guarantee you.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Deb? Did you raise your hand?
I did.
Oh, sorry. I was over that way. Melissa?
Brian and I's role work very closely together. Even to this day, I'm always amazed at the amount of knowledge and experience he has regarding every aspect of city government. It truly is something that everyone should want their city manager to have. One of the major things I've learned from Brian is how important communication is for every aspect of city government. He leads department heads through bi-weekly meetings to discuss what's happening within the city and encourages city employees to update their council on major projects and events so that they're also in the know. As city manager, Brian has shown us how important it is that the documents we present to council are written well and provide the council the information they need to make an informed decision. When hard conversations come up, such as tax rates, budgets, bonds, etc., he always takes the time to review and know the options available so that council can make the best decision for the citizens of Tipton. As a city, you always want to be progressing forward, trying to better your community, but also doing it in a fiscally responsible way. One of the ways Brian has done that is with the creation of the capital improvements plan within each department. As the council knows, the CIPs are a great tool to use as they show the council and the citizens what's being planned and saved for. Brian was instrumental in developing these CIPs and continuing the momentum moving forward in these important areas. As city manager, Brian leads the city. He's a key piece of the team. His leadership qualities are undeniable. He always makes sure all aspects of a conversation have been explored before coming to any type of conclusion or action plan. He's very strategic in his thoughts, always wanting to make sure the decisions that are being made are what's best for the citizens of Tipton. An example of that is when we were working with the Safer project. Brian guided the city looking for multiple options that would provide the best results to the citizens. Even when we were put in a position that we didn't want to be in, he led the team, making sure the council was informed of all options that they had and the different ways that the project could be funded and how that would impact the citizens. He expressed the expectations he has for employees while also praising them for a job well done. He encourages departments to think outside the box and look for ways to improve a program, bring something new to their department, or revamp the way something's been done in the past, just to make it more efficient. He motivates and empowers others to continue to grow in their own professional journey. It takes a team of skilled individuals to operate effectively and succeed. Brian is a key part of our team, and removing him from his position would be detrimental for the entire city.
Thanks. Anyone over? Nope. All right, then I would open it up to any general public comments, which keep in mind what I said about civility and defamatory comments. Oh, yeah, you first.
I'm Brian Simpson. I'm Barbara Clarkson from Coralville, Iowa. Brian and I grew up in a small town, Fairbank, Iowa, northeast side. I can attest to his character throughout the years and to his abilities throughout the years. But I'll start with when he was 19, he graduated salutatorian in his class. When he was 19, he was elected to the school board, Wapsie Valley. And he did a lot of work for the school after he had decided that he wanted to take the city management track. He was asked by Fairbank to support them in their city growth. And he went to school at Woodford, commuted with a Vega the whole time on Highway 3. Took care of my mom when she was sick, took care of my dad. He had colon cancer, stayed at home, commuted, took care of our town of Fairbank. What did he do for Fairbank while he was going to school? You saw things being built that had never been done before. He was able to get grants for the community. People who we had known for a long time didn't have siding for their house. He was able to get community outreach and grants that would provide them with better homes, trails. If you go into the city of Fairbank, you'll see his work, and there's a lot of people who wish he had never left. But his life continued on, and he married Julie, and they moved out of state. And I know you know the cities that Brian has helped that wish to have him back as well. Yep. And then finally he came back into Macocata, where he had quite a presence working for the city of Macocata. The whole time, though, it didn't dawn on me until one of your community members came to me. I work at a flower shop at a Hy-Vee in Coralville, and one of your community members came in and said that they were from Tipton. And I said, you know, my brother, she said, oh yeah, he's a soft-spoken guy, he's thoughtful, he takes his time, but he leads well, and I appreciated having him for the city, and that stuck with me, and that made me remember all of the things in his character that make him special. He and I talk about how he's building communities, how he wants to be a resource, how he wants to help, how he reaches out to the federal government to try to get Tipton moving and progressing along. Some of these things might be a bump in the road. We just came out of a pandemic. But we got to recognize bumps for bumps as they are. But I can tell you, I attest for his character, his honesty, his wisdom, his ability to work with people has been consistent throughout his life. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Larry?
Yes, Larry Hodgson of 6th Street in Tipton Hill. I think Tipton was very fortunate to get Brian when he came to take over, because we were kind of, I think, struggling at that point, Tipton was. And what you've heard from Melissa and Linda and from your sister, I can echo and second those remarks. I think I've not heard many, if any, complaints or concerns about Brian's behavior or actions, or about the direction Tipton is going. So I've worked with Brian on some different things through the Bicycle Coalition for one, and Brian's very supportive of that, through the trails that they're trying to provide for the city of Tipton. I found him to be a very soft-spoken, yet very good person, easy person to talk to. And when he says something, it's because he's thought about it. He doesn't just shoot from the hip. He knows what he's talking about when he's talking. So I think it'd be a great loss to the city of Tipton to lose Brian prior to him getting ready to retire, whenever that comes up. And that's his decision. If he had not been doing a good job, then there were better ways to have handled something like this. If council members had a concern, there are proper channels to go through to register those concerns with him. It should have been done through the proper procedures. I think there's an old saying that loose lips sink ships. And I'd hate to see our ship go down because of some loose lips. So hopefully the council will take that into consideration.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
Tom Dorman, resident of Tipton, also the previous city administrator of 3 cities. Currently for HR operations at Mount Mercy University. Mine's more about questions, and I'm going to direct questions to, but being in Brian's position in the past, I've known Brian for since I was 24 years old. I've known Brian for a long time. Questions are, why would you let a professional manager go without cause? I just don't understand that being in the HR. If you have cause, you have reason to let somebody go. But without cause, how do you just make that arbitrary decision to let somebody go like that? City of Tipton's going to have a hard time finding it. It's not a real attractive town to come to, especially with the environment that you're creating by letting somebody go without cause. That's going to be a red flag for it. It also sends a red flag to your employees. Do they have to be looking around the corner? Do they have to be thinking they're next? There's so many things that are wrong about this process and the system. I'm not a fan of the process anymore, because you have a professional manager being managed by folks that are only really there 2 to 4 hours a month. Pretty hard to know what Brian's up to. If Brian leaves, who's going to take over the projects? It takes 6 months to a year to get caught up. What are you going to do with all the projects that are currently going on? It just doesn't make sense. The other questions I have is, does the city of Tipton have a progressive discipline policy? Why aren't we following it? If he did something wrong, why are we not following it? And that's the other reason why I was asked this is, since this isn't a closed session, what did he do wrong? If we're not going to give an answer, could this be discrimination? He is part of a protected class. He is over the age of 40. So that's a protected class. If nobody's going to say why, there you go. And remember, council obviously can hide behind the shield of professional liability, errors of omission insurance, but this is a willful, wrongful, or intentional dishonest act. You're going to be held liable on your own insurance. You could lose your business, you could lose your home. So, and then my final thing is just, obviously, the city attorney's here. I know Iowa law 372.15, removal of officials. Brian is an appointed official, as is the city clerk, as is your police chief. There are procedures to follow that. And part of those procedures, even since this is not a closed session, from what I understand of this, from my past experience, you have to give reasons. You have to certify the city clerk, and then you have to have 30 days to be able to respond, and have 30 days for a set here with the council. So that's all. So,
Thank you, Todd. Clay?
I really didn't plan on saying I'm Clay Johnson, but you knows me, knows I like to talk once in a while. I like to say I haven't had too much running with Brian. I've not been agree with everything he did, don't disagree with everything he did. But I heard earlier, but the thing that keeps going around in my head is we've talked to employees that have left. We've talked to employees that don't want to work here anymore for whatever reason. Nobody has talked to me as an employee that wants to stay here, and the other guys that I work with. That's whose opinion is important here, not somebody that's left. Somebody that's still here and wants to know why our leader is gonna go or stay, or whatever we're doing here. And I've been here 14 years through different city managers. I just don't understand this whole process. What went wrong? Because nobody's talked to me personally, so I'm speaking for me. Nobody's asked my opinion, nor the opinion of many people I work with. We don't know what's going on. So all we know is Brian's head's on the chopping block, and I mean, if the council, I was a council person in this town. If the council thinks they want to make all the decisions that he has to make to conduct business, that you will get off the council as fast as you can. It is an enormous task. If he's done something, let's hear about it. If he hasn't done anything, I hope you all know the current business climate. There's not a lot of qualified candidates for anything, let alone a city manager. So as an employee, if there's a reason his head's on the block, if we can be told, let us know, so we know what we're expected to do. Like the comment, are we next? Because I've heard nothing why we should be getting rid of him. So if there is something, if we could hear it, that would be great.
Thanks, Clay.
Yep.
Pat?
For all of you who don't know me, my name is Patrick Callahan. I'm a municipal consultant, and I was the consultant that worked with the city when Brian was hired. And so I retired as city manager of Dakota and started my own business. That's what I do for a living. I'm semi-retired now, but I help the city recruit and hire city managers. And if the issue is the residency requirement, that was discussed when Brian was hired. And they knew going in that Brian may not live here right away. And the council at that time was okay with that. And so if that has now changed, then, you know, that needs to be a whole other discussion. But as a recruiter of city managers, I can echo what you heard earlier. It is extremely difficult in today's environment to get people to apply for these positions because of things like this, you know, and the stress that goes with a job. 10, 20 years ago, you would get 35 applications for this job. Not today. Your neighbors to the north, Cascade, had an opening for a position. They had 5 applicants. They interviewed 5 and didn't like any of them. And so guess what? When you have a bad reputation your community is not going to get good quality candidates for this position. When I first met with the council 5.5, 6 years ago, and I learned more about what was going on and why Chris Nosvich left here and went to Mount Vernon, I says, wait a minute, council, we're not going to find a good applicant in this environment. Let's step back, hire an interim. That's why Tim Long was brought in, because the environment wasn't very good and I could not find you a good candidate. So Tim Long came in and kind of settled things down a little bit. He was exactly what you needed at that time. Did a good job for you for a year or so, and then he was ready to retire, move on, and that's when we brought Brian. You're going to have an extremely difficult time replacing someone now because of what happened then and what happened now, because potential candidates are going to call nearby city managers. They're going to call me and they're just going to say, hey, what happened? What's going on there? Should I apply for Tipton? Guess what everybody in this profession is going to tell them? They're going to say, no, don't touch Tipton, Iowa. You're going to want to go to the next town. And there's plenty of openings out there right now. I turn down cities because I can't do them all that have openings, but I can't find candidates right now. That's really a challenge. We're finding candidates, and many times they're looking to leave another situation that isn't so great. So guess what? You may inherit bigger problems than what you think you're going to inherit. So I gave the council a letter over the weekend. Did all council members get my memo? Is there anybody in the council who did not get it? Okay, good. I gave the council basically 5 reasons why you're going to have one hell of a time finding a replacement. I also gave them a blueprint on what they could do going forward to resolve this without going to termination. You know, this is like a divorce. It's not going to be good for either party. It's going to be really difficult for both parties. So you need to step back, take a deep breath and say, okay, what do we need to do to resolve this before we get this divorce and all hell breaks loose? So my suggestion to you, council, is follow my 5 steps. Give this a chance to work out, because you're not going to find a better replacement than Brian Wagner. I can guarantee it to you. If anybody would like a copy of my memo, you're welcome to have a copy.
Thanks, Pat. All right, let's call out this way in the public.
Mayor, Leanne Boots, prior
Yeah, one
council member, asked,
One more speaker.
Oh, where? Oh,
she just asked, she's not able to make it tonight, so she asked that I read a statement. And she said, with no one on the council in on the interview and the hiring process of Brian, have they truly researched what he has brought to the table in Tipton? Over my time on council, we did numerous interviews for city manager, and no one provided the type of information Brian presented us in the manner in which he presented it in his interview. It was quite impressive, and I sincerely doubt it will ever be duplicated by another candidate.
thank you. Scott?
Scott Pearson, 1200 Cemetery Road, Tipton. I am a member of the airport committee and also the TEDCO board, and I've interfaced with Brian on other community projects. I've not seen a city manager that we've dealt with in about 10 years I've been on the airport board that has been as knowledgeable of how to manipulate the federal grant system and to use the city's funding as well as he has done compared to anybody else. He's very conservative with the city's money, and he provides us very good feedback for what we are doing right, what we're doing wrong. And I don't think you'll ever replace him with something like that. And I certainly hope this won't make him decide that we get to keep it.
All right, thanks, Scott. Then I'll start with the council. Does anybody have anything that they would like to share?
Yeah. Brian was hired before I was ever on council. But I, you know, in the times I've been on council, I've never had a problem with the one issue that we had with that was resolved as far as the, city manager, the electric department there. The only issue I ever had, and he brought up, was residency. I wasn't aware he didn't live here. But that's the only problem I've ever had with Brian right now is myself. I don't have any problem as far as anything else going on there. And I just want to make that note.
Thank you.
If I could just,
Yep.
Mike, I don't know if you're aware, Brian actually did move to town for a few years.
I see, I wasn't aware of that, no.
Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, he did. He actually moved to town shortly after he started here and lived on East 6th Street for a while. And his rapport was good with the council. Things were going well. He was heading home on the weekends and spending time with the family. And at some point, he said, I'm X amount of years or this close to retirement. Would it be okay if I live out the rest of my career back in Macokota? And the council voted him around. Brian? That's right.
Yep, that's exactly what happened, yep.
Yeah, and they voted to go ahead and live back in home.
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Yeah, I don't remember what.
It was.
I think that I have had nothing but a good working relationship with Brian. You know, being on the council, I think maybe Tom was one that said it, you know, we don't actually have as many hours with him as the rest of the people that you just heard speak out there. So I think that what they have to say is pretty impactful, because they're the ones that have to work with him on a daily basis. And I think that we also have to consider, like Pat said, what are we gonna get next? And I don't want to find out.
All right, thank you, Abby. Anyone else? All right. So I was thinking about this kind of in a different way as well. As you guys saw in the agenda, the severance pay, benefits, and vacation payout would equal $83,781.35.
Am I going to get to speak, or I've had my hand up and I just keep getting ignored?
Oh, didn't see you there, Floyd. Go. I mean,
Well,
you got on late, Floyd, so that's what happens.
I'd like to ask a question. Is Brian an at-will employee?
Legally, Holly, what is he considered?
The council's not going to answer any questions during this open forum, for starters, but two, if you would like me to answer that.
Yeah.
Brian is under contract. So he's not the same as a normal applicant. He has a contract. I believe the contract might note that he's at will, but there is a contract there that we need to follow.
Okay, so then with that being said, the council has the right to terminate that contract at any time. Is that not correct?
I'm not going to go into an analysis of the contract and my legal advice to the council with you, Floyd, but if you have comments that you'd like to make, you're welcome to make those to the council right now.
Well, I guess those are comments because they're questions. And if you don't want to answer them, I'd like to know why, Holly.
Because my advice to the council is attorney-client privilege, and if I announce it to this entire room, I'll break our privilege.
Well, the way I see it is if the council wants to terminate his contract, they can do it at any time. And speaking from past experience, I think that the council has the right to do that. And I know a lot of people in town that I have talked to, my years as superintendent, that they were not happy that he did not live in town. So you can take that for what it's worth, but I support the council's decision if they decide to terminate his contract. And I fully support that, and I want all the council members to know that. So, and there's a lot of other people in town who do, and they were unable to make the meeting tonight. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Floyd.
Can I speak also? I'm waiting on Zoom.
1 second. It's Bonnie Butler.
Well, I'm also hoping that there were a lot of people who might be in support of me who couldn't make the meeting either.
But yes, Bonnie Butler, your turn.
Yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know that I met Brian through professional relationships when I worked at Cedar County Public Health. And in the beginning of the pandemic, when things were very crazy and it was hard to get through to us, Brian showed up in my office and spent time with me asking questions about how he could keep the residents of Tipton and the staff and the businesses all safe and open for as long as possible. He was very conscientious, wanting to make sure that they did the right thing for everybody who was involved. And then since then, I've worked on a few other projects with him, and I've always found him to be very thoughtful and well-spoken and careful and considerate. I can't imagine having somebody else come in and replace him who would have that kind of experience and knowledge and the personality to deal with the kinds of things he deals with. Second of all, as a taxpayer, I can tell you, I don't think there are very many people who are going to support the council spending $83,000 to terminate the contract of somebody who has not done anything wrong. There better be a darn good reason for you to be spending that kind of money when we have so many other needs in this community. I just think you're really underestimating the people in this community and what they're going to support. Third of all, I'm very concerned about the council wanting to take over these HR responsibilities, because if this is an example of how you're going to handle employee relations, that does not speak well for our community or for anybody who's going to want to work here. So I understand that the person who spoke previously to me thinks that the council has the right to make those decisions, and I'm not arguing that, but I think the question is whether they should make that decision. This shouldn't be about personal grudges and minor disagreements. If he hasn't done anything wrong, then he shouldn't be terminated. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Bonnie. And with Bonnie and Floyd, I'm sorry, if anybody else online would like to say anything, by all means, please do. I'm looking for a green icon for your microphone. All right. Seeing if there are none, I'll continue with mine. With the $83,000, our last estimate for North Plum was going to be a little over $880,000. So that would mean that 10% of that project would be basically going to terminate this contract. And also, I believe our last budget, the town had a taxable valuation increase of around $54,000. So that would actually put our budget behind where we were last year at this time. So the other thing that Floyd did bring up a question that I thought about was that has the general public inundated the council with calls to remove Brian? I know nobody has talked to me about it, but on top of that, have all of those people been told what happens if he were to leave? I know as a council, we've been kind of coached on what to say. If asked about this, a couple things are about, like needing to move in a new direction or the city needs a new take. We've got 11 months until a new election. It's going to take 6 months easy of meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting to even attempt to hire a new city manager. The new direction, the new take on the city could potentially be a new council. There's myself and 3 other council members that are actually, our terms are ending then. Whether or not we all run and get reelected, it would still be a different council. So I would like to see that fall on the next council. I think that was about it. One last thing. I did ask Holly for her estimate on how much this has cost the city so far, and she put that cost estimate at about $2,300. So, I remember what the other dollars and cents was. Last time we had discussed how much it costs to repave, resurface a block of city street is about $100,000. And I think that was kind of before COVID time, so it's probably a little bit more. But I am not ready to tell a citizen that their block of distressed street is not ready. It cannot be resurfaced because we just decided to terminate an employee. So with that being said,
Hey, could I just,
definitely.
I just want to thank everybody for their kind words. I didn't want to have this continue. I don't know how this is going to turn out. But I do thank you for your kind words tonight. I appreciate it.
Yes, and I can't echo enough what else has been said. Todd, one last thing.
Just a quick question, can I ask the rest of the council to speak on?
Well, I've been trying to. Go for it.
Of course, we kind of are told not to talk about stuff, so we can't. Back to, excuse me, Clay. Yes, I've had multiple employees talk to me. I've been shunned for talking to employees. They've been shunned for talking to me. So does the council, do they hold their weight? Does an employee not get to talk to them and voice their frustrations? And back to the HR, there's been multiple times where people are not happy. They don't feel like they can go and talk to somebody because they're afraid of the repercussions. Or that's where I feel an HR department is a very valuable thing. No words are going to be told. Who said this? Who said that? This is what's going on. I've been, there was no defamatory remarks. We're supposed to be no defamatory. I'm on the fire department. I don't see any other council members on the fire department. I'm on the fire and ambulance. So I kind of take that as a little jab to me a little bit. There have been several things that have been brought up that have been kicked down the curb for quite some time on our EMS that unfortunately the residents don't get to hear everything. We do. I'm sorry, Brian, that nobody calls you. I get stopped, maybe I'm the lucky one. I call it unlucky. I get stopped a lot. And I've been in a business and I've never been confronted so many times with things that people are unhappy with. I have voiced them, they've gone nowhere. Again, this is just me. Everybody else can talk to what they are, but there's a lot more going behind the scenes than what we are able to talk about. What we've been advised not to talk about. And, I guess I'm putting a general stipulation on this. I'm not gonna never been one to sit down and take something and not have an answer for it. So here's my answer, is there have been things going on. I have talked to past and previous employees and employees that are still employed about grievances, stuff that's going on. And we have brought this HR thing up since I got on, basically, I guess. And I guess my thing is I can only beat my head against the wall so many times. That's my point.
All right, thanks. All right. So with that being said, I think we'll close that performance review of the city manager and move on to the discussion and possible action concerning the review of the city manager's contract and possible action item that would provide 30 days written notice of intent to terminate the city manager's employment agreement. All right. Is there
Motion.
McNeil with the first? Ron with the second? All right, I will stipulate though, since Brian has to be notified that we got to give a reason after Amy calls your name.
Cummins,
No.
Hembry,
Yes.
Wait. Just make sure you heard me say you got to stipulate a reason, right? Because it's gonna be filed with the city clerk.
Your Honor, what is, like the legal basis for the reason?
That Article 5.09, city code.
The reason would be they're terminating without cause pursuant to the contract. That would be what the resolutions for what they're doing from a legal point of view. I don't know any legal requirement that they would have to give a reason of, and we've already contracted for that as an option.
Because city code said they do.
But we've contracted that the reason could be without cause and that we would pay severance under the situation. So there would be no cause and both parties have said that's fine.
I don't know.
Tom, do you have something to say?
Yeah.
But I think that's true if you were in closed session, but because this is open session, you have to get a reason under Iowa Code 372.15, which is also the same as 5.09.
372.15 requires a notice to be given after the termination, which would be given tomorrow, and you give the reasons which would be pursuant to the contract, and then you would have 30 days to request it. Yes.
So we're gonna have, so he gets reasons. I mean, that's part of this process is that there's no reason. So if they're not gonna, they're gonna be filed with the clerk, so we're all gonna be able to see them tomorrow anyway. So we have reasons to.
That's kind of my thought too.
You have a contract, you have already made an agreement between the city and Brian that you can terminate him without reason if you pay him a certain amount of money. And when we file that, if that's the decision of the council to move forward with termination, that's what that notice with the city clerk. So I don't know there's no legal authority that we would have to give notice and reasons here in this open meeting right now that I'm aware of. As a policy matter, I suppose if you all want to do that, that's fine.
I think it'd probably be good policy. Yeah. Recorded record, written record.
I want to remind everybody, they're making a decision for the entire community right now. Not just themselves.
So we're back to that. Stated reason.
I guess when I was talking to the lawyer earlier things, I was told to listen to the lawyer's advice. So I'm listening to her advice. And if that's wrong, I mean, I don't.
I'm running the meeting though. Like she said, it may not be policy, it's a policy thing. I mean, it could be that he's got on a green shirt today, but that would be the justification of the public to break a contract for $83,000.
An option would, I mean, if the reason could be pursuant to the contract, that would be a legal option.
And that's what he signed with the city. That he's given those 30 days of the contract. Part of it.
Well, we would be following the contract.
Yeah, that's following the contract. That's why they do contract.
So if you want to deliver, I think the mayor's asking for reasons. If you want to deliver your reason to the mayor, I think.
Yep.
It can, and that can be the reason. You can have any reason you want.
Whatever legal advice is. Said it before, I won't jeopardize Tipton for one individual. I'll take legal counsel accordingly.
So then what's the reason? Because of the contract. I mean, I don't want to put,
Moving to remove and pursuant to the contract.
is that it, Ron?
Yes.
Okay.
Helm,
No.
Postian,
Yes, pursuant to the contract.
McNeil,
Yes. Pursuant to the contract.
All right, so that passes 3-2. Probably should inform you that it will be vetoed within the next 10 days, and then we'll move on from that. So I guess the next one is a resolution terminating the employment of the city manager. Is there a motion?
Motion.
That would be the veto one, if you want.
Oh, sorry, I got a little excited on my veto. Not to foreshadow and tip my hand, but we deal with the first on number 3 resolution.
Second.
Posturing with the second.
Hembry,
Yes.
Helm,
No.
Postian,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Cummins,
No.
All right, so that one will be vetoed within the next 10 days and we'll go from there. Next one, discussion of possible action to authorize interim city manager options. Luckily, we happen to have somebody here who deals in that. I'll let you take this one, Mr. Callahan.
Before I get to that, just a point of order, I'm curious to know, since these are resolutions, if I understand Iowa law correctly as a mayor, I think you can veto those resolutions.
Yep, and then they got to be overridden.
Okay,
Yes,
and it would take a 4-to-1 vote to override your veto.
yes.
Okay, just curious. To answer your question about recruitment, I'm not going to be submitting a proposal to help you because I can't find you. And right now, you probably can find a consultant to help you. I can give you the name of one that would probably take it on. The price would probably be $12,000 to $18,000 to do that. But my recommendation to you is don't hire an outside consultant. Do it on your own.
All right. Most of those,
See what happens. Save your money.
all right. Any discussion on this? Is there a motion to table, deny, approve? Or we can just let it die.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, Posture with the first to approve.
Second.
McNeil with the second.
Helm.
No.
Oh, he said no. Postian,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Cummins,
No.
Hembry,
Could I ask a question on that?
Definitely.
Now that it's been approved, who's going to do it? Says authorize review of interim city manager options and provide to council at a future meeting. Who are you going to assign to that?
Holly, we had discussion about that, didn't we?
How you do it, how you could do that in a memo, but I sent you all this afternoon.
So how?
Well, y'all could pull that up now. I want you to be careful because I have privilege with the council.
How is it legal advice to authorize review of interim city manager options and report to a future meeting?
It was about the process. So you could assign it to someone if you wanted to do that. That's the motion, but you would need to decide who you're going to assign it to.
That's what I'm asking.
And have to gather information and bring it back to you.
I mean, it was said a little while ago that the council was going to do all of the hiring and firing decisions going forward. So would that be somebody from the council?
that would be done by an amendment to your ordinances. Because your ordinances, they've asked that power at the same meeting as they're right now. So there's a lot of work to be done before that happens in terms of amending the ordinances. So for now, they would have to, it would just be information gathering. They would have
All right.
Have they named an employee?
They have not named an employee. Not that I'm
No.
aware of.
Not that I know of either.
I believe I suggested employees that maybe we could do that in their role, but I don't know about that.
Nope. So should we get that decided right now? So we're not rudderless? Anybody up here want to volunteer? All right, well. Guess we'll wait 2 weeks to start that process.
One thing to say.
Yeah.
This should have never been brought in front of an open council. That's all I have to say. It's not, the city's not ready for this.
No. All right, so we'll move on to the next one. Well, I guess,
Actually, that brings me to a question.
yeah.
How does one council person get to put something like that on the agenda?
Well, we don't have a formal process. And through the experience of our attorneys in their other roles before becoming city attorneys, they have had council people in those other locales contact the state after trying to not have an agenda item on for a while. So it was once again under the direction of our city attorney to go ahead and bring this to the council. The other things, you know, Brian has to agree to the closed session, and he did not. So that is why that was in open. All right, so then moving on to number 5, it's a resolution that would approve construction of sanitary sewer main and related infrastructure on the city property by or on behalf of the Cedar County Co-op. And we got Doug Herman on the line. Mr. Herman.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I had submitted a memo to the council on this. I spoke with you and the city manager briefly about this, and when I read the minutes, it wasn't, I don't think, clear enough to provide adequate direction on how this project should move forward. I know at some point we talked initially about the co-op wanting an easement, and there was some concern with the council that the council did not want to grant an easement, but was okay with the sewer line, if you will. All that the minutes indicated was that the co-op would pay for the line and the city would own the property above it. And I think there needs to be a lot of more T's crossed and I's dotted. Who owns the line when it's installed? Is it installed per city spec? Is the city engineer going to sign off on the plans for it? Is the city engineer or somebody with city staff going to inspect the construction? All of that being more important if this is going to be part of the city's infrastructure after it's installed, which I think seems to be the intent of the council, that the council wouldn't just own the land, but would own the line. And from a city standpoint, you want to be sure it was built in such a way that it meets the expectations of your city engineer, because you have an obligation to maintain it from that point forward. And you also want to construct it in a way that works for whatever else you might do with that line down the road, whether you tie into it, location of manholes, types of manholes, whether there's chimney seals on manholes. All of those little details, I think, deserve some further discussion. So my memo isn't so much let the line go in or don't let the line go in. It's just fine tuning what the expectations are of the co-op and what the city is willing to take on as far as this project when it's completed, whether it'll be a city main or not. And if it's not going to be a city main, it would be highly unusual to allow a private service line to go through city property without some form of easement. So if it's going to be a private line, you really should reconsider the concerns with an easement, or we should talk about those concerns and iron them out. Quite honestly, if I was the co-op, I'd be a little leery to spend, I don't know what they're going to spend here, but let's say $15,000, $20,000 or more to put in a service line on land it doesn't own without any written right to put it there. It doesn't make sense. So I think we need to clear up some of those questions. I think the project can definitely go forward with the council's approval. You just want to be sure it's done in a way that the city's protected and you know what you're getting.
All right, any questions for Doug?
What specifically, in which parts of the sewer installation is of concern if you follow SUDAS or 10 state standard and the co-op pays for it? Why is it such a big issue? We have city staff review it. The water and wastewater superintendent got an email from DNR stating that if it only serves one entity, even owned by the city, it would not be required to have a permit issued by the state or reviewed by engineering. So city review and make sure that it meets their specifications as Doug has stated. Then what's so hard about getting this co-op on sanitary sewer? I wouldn't think it'd be that big of a deal.
You're right, it wouldn't, and they have other options. That's the thing I'm pointing out. They have other options. The co-op does not have to go through city property, which is in use, once again, from March to November. And as Tim pointed out when we had discussed this a little bit, it used to be marsh there. I'm not a dirtologist, but that ground usually isn't the most solid there is, and it is still going to be put in by people. And this one I have talked to some people about, and the people who use the park and families who use it are not in favor of this.
Sewer lines running all through that park. You don't worry about them, just the ones at the soccer field.
When it's serving just one customer, yes. When they have other options. Dave Summers sat back there and said he could go north, he could go south, he could actually put in a leach field if need be.
Well, I thought the superintendent's memo stated that if we put in a leach field or allow them to go septic, the community has to tell them why they're denying access to the sewer. Am I wrong, Mr. Brennan?
But
Could you, I'm sorry. You were talking about the leach field?
Wasn't it stated from Region 6 that if we don't allow them to tie into sanitary sewer, we have to tell them why? If they put in a septic system, that's how your memo read.
The way I remember it is, if it was gonna be difficult to get a line to the city, the co-op was gonna look into a septic anyway. That was their next option after the council had some hesitation or resistance, whatever you want to call it. And they did look into that. They actually contacted DNR. They asked, I think it was Wayne Lynch, maybe the trio of them. And it was going to be 75,000 plus to do a industrial leach field. It's going to have an industrial level on it. So that was when co-op leaned back towards coming to city trunk line. And if there were details on that, I'm sorry, it's been so many months ago, I'd have to look back.
Well, it's
But-
2.5 months ago.
But it's also, I don't think anybody's denying them. It's like,
But okay, in all your installations of sewers, even those in the middle of the streets are in the right of way. They usually install them so they do not or are not recognized by the general public, correct?
Yeah, if I'm being honest, I don't really see a problem with it being buried down there.
Didn't we already agree to run it through?
that was a 3-0 vote. I know
We're putting more concern in this than we are other things.
I mean, it's public property. I mean, you got sewer
we
lines
go
running
into
all
Creo,
over it.
correct? Dot the Ts, cross the Is, get it over with.
And you're capable of reviewing what Lynch would put in, I'm confident on that part. You'd probably put down a locking manhole.
I don't have a problem with that. I told a couple of council members, I think after you involve engineers and lawyers, you get more opinions. You can involve NASA if you want to, but it's a little hard to back the train up when it's down the tracks that far. I think a month ago, probably we could have boarded in there and been just fine. We all know where it's gonna go. Now you've got some recommendations from your lawyers and your engineers, and I think you're sticking your neck out a little bit now. If we're gonna go ahead and go without them, I think maybe we still could get it done. Mr. Bob Campbell and the permitting department. I'm just being honest here, folks. This is my opinion. You can take it for what it's worth. He said, if it's gonna serve one entity, the co-op only, with no intention of ever ricking anybody else up, then it doesn't have to have a construction permit. Now, one question that stands, I think, is this a city project or is this a co-op project? I see it as a co-op that the city's gonna accept. So, but
It could be like a housing development too, correct? Okay.
I mean, there's standards for it, if that's what you're getting at. There's standards for it, that we can look at it, inspect it, but I'm not a lawyer and I'm not an engineer. So, and I don't quote state law or can I inspect? Yes, but I'm not.
And in the interest of the community, it'd be good for the co-op to be on sanitary sewer, would it not?
I don't see a problem with that. They're gonna be on it if they go to 7th Street.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. They can not have to go through city property.
But that is 1,500 feet to go the south route.
How many manholes are 1,500 feet divided by 400?
That'd be about 4.
Jump. And when it was originally presented to the council, it was selected that B was the best route, which took it right through the core. And,
If I remember
hang up over
correctly.
The sewer line is, be harsh to me, it'd be like the people on Fifth Street that had a blockage and not fix it. That's about silly. You know, if you have an issue, just do it and be done with it and get on down the road.
If I remember correctly, it was turned down 5-0 the first time it was brought.
You know, I said that the co-op should be on sewer and the thing for entities to be on our utilities. It was a 4-1. And they looked at me as if I was confused.
No. All right, 4-1, it was defeated when it was first brought. And there are other ways around the park. That's all that I'm saying. All right, so if there's no more discussion or any questions for Brian or anybody else, I'll ask for a motion. Oh, yep.
Propose at least states the size. I think you want 8-inch. Whoever's talking with Lynch about 6-inch, but I think you all want 8-inch. I did talk to him today. He did say he can forward. I want to be sure of that website. That's all I'm getting.
Maybe a question for Doug Herman is if the council, if the council votes not to approve the resolution that's on the agenda, what does that mean? Does that mean that it reverts back to the 3-0 vote, or does it mean something else?
Well, the 3-0 vote stands, I'll say regardless. It's a separate vote. And that 3-0 vote, though, leaves a lot of unanswered questions. So I'm not sure with that 3-0 vote exactly what the city does. I think, and I'm not doubting what anybody's saying. I think the 3-0 vote, I think the council folks who voted in favor of it had an idea what it meant, and even do today, that, well, we're just gonna bore this in and the city will accept it and that'll be good. But, and again, my position or our position as your legal counsel isn't that this is a good or a bad idea. It's just, you know, again, all the unanswered questions. So I think if this resolution doesn't pass, or some resolution doesn't pass, those unanswered questions will remain until such time as the council decides what the answers are. So, and in the meantime, the sewer in theory goes in, right? Because we've got a motion that allowed the co-op to pay for the line and city owned the property above it. So let's say that means that the co-op can go ahead and put the sewer in. Are they gonna, what if then they're gonna then dedicate it to the city? What if the council votes not to accept the dedication? Then it becomes a private line under city property without an easement. What if, as the mayor said, this soil isn't the greatest and it gets put in and it settles and now you have a belly in the sewer line that's plugging up? Is the city gonna maintain that, or is that gonna be on the co-op to maintain it? So I don't think, again, this resolution or a resolution similar to this, if the council wants to put other terms in a resolution, I don't think that does away with the earlier approval, but I still go back to some of my initial comments that I think the council needs to iron out what those details are. And part of those details could be installed pursuant to SUDAS and city code, installed under the direction and supervision of the city public works director or sanitary wastewater superintendent or the city engineer, wherever you decide in that regard. One manhole, this kind of manhole. Like, I think, again, there's those issues that, and I'm not judging whether, again, this project should or shouldn't happen. It's just deciding who decides what those details are and whether it's going to be a city main in the end or a private main in the end.
So then, Doug, on your legal opinion, is it the council's direction to actually dictate what goes in the ground? I figure that's what management within our city structure would facilitate.
Yeah, I think if
Our wastewater superintendent, he goes through training, and the standards are all the same throughout the state, no matter where you're at. You will do geotech and all that information. It used to be a swamp land. It used to be an airport. So yeah, but we drill pipes. There's a pipe 6 miles underneath Lake Springfield that I keep hearing about. And I just find that amazing that we can do that, and we do it out in the oceans. So for this to be hung up to where the co-op can't get a sewer line, seems like it's trivial that, you know, management hasn't put down the engineering for the direction to allow it to go when the council said put the sewer line in the pipe. The only goal that the council would write is point it in the direction for the good of the community. The installation and specifications, there isn't a single one of us up here that can recite them verbatim. I look them up every time.
my short response to that would be that, you know, I wasn't part of the conversation when this passed, so I'm not sure of all of the background conversation. I'm relying a bit on the minutes, where it just indicated the co-op would pay for the line. It didn't say who would install it, and it said the city would own the property above it. So to me, I knew the council wasn't in favor of an easement, so that was the council's way of saying, we're still gonna own this ground, no easement. But it wasn't real clear, and maybe it was in the discussion during the meeting outside of the scope of the minutes, that it was supposed to be an addition to the city's sewer system, and it was gonna be part of the sewer main system. But that's not clear from the minutes, and I think too, I think to the point that management could manage this and figure out the details is correct. You know, I think to that end, if the motion had said, for example, the co-op would pay for the installation of a line by a licensed and certified plumber or contractor subject to the supervision and oversight of the city manager and the public works department, I think there'd be more T's crossed and I's dotted. Just when this was brought to my attention and I asked the questions, well, what does this mean? Some of the feedback I got was that it wasn't necessarily clear, but it seemed like, generally speaking, the council voted 3-0 to allow the co-op to have a line installed. So, and again, that isn't probably that big a deal to get this line installed if you hire somebody who knows what they're doing and you have the city look over it. One of my big points was if you're going to accept it in the end as a city sewer main, you just need to be sure that it was installed appropriately. And that's up to whether it be Brian as the manager or somebody with the public works department. or the engineer, whoever, somebody should just be paying attention on the city side to be sure that it was done correctly if you're going to accept it as a city sewer main.
All right. So with this, to approve the construction of the sanitary sewer main and related infrastructure, the motion would probably have to have in it whether or not we're going to consult engineer or have our department sign off on it, and who supervises it.
Make a motion to go through it and have our person sign off on it, Brian. And you said 8 inch, correct?
I believe that's.
We'll make a motion for that.
Second.
There should probably be something in there too about taking who signs off on it when the city takes ownership of it and who maintains it, since that wasn't in the original. Or I suppose you could direct someone to look into those and work with the co-op staff.
You want to enter this into your motion, but I think the intent originally was upon acceptance, it becomes the city's, right? A manhole.
Exactly.
And maintained by the city.
Yes.
And inspected periodically.
By the city. All right.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
Motion.
On with first.
Mr. Mayor?
Yo, wait, what?
Just to interrupt, I guess. So you've got a proposed resolution and, you know, of course, you approve a resolution by motion, and we've talked about a lot of details. Is it the council's intent to build those details into this resolution so you have a record? It's a little bit more detailed than just a simple motion that's in the minutes, which is what the problem was initially, that we just didn't have enough detail. So many of the things I think you folks are agreeing to in the proposed resolution, we've got numbers 1 through 7. We could clean those up and make it clear what it is you're wanting to do. That would be my advice, because again, there's a long-standing decision to accept this into your city sewer main system. Again, not judging whether that's a good or bad decision, it could be just fine. But I think if we take the motion and the indications of the council, we build those into the resolution and have a more formal record.
All right. So
If it is a main, usually when the city accepts a new main, there's a warranty with it. Has anybody talked about what the warranty would be? I mean, we would do that with any other main.
Usually be a maintenance bond of sorts on if a main was installed by a developer as part of a city project. Of course, there again, in that case, you got plans and specs and engineers involved inspecting everything, but there usually is a maintenance bond when the city accepts it. The benefit of this main, it's not under a city street, so if something does go wrong, you won't be tearing up a street to get at it, hopefully.
Instead, we'll just be tearing up rec fields. So then to go through these, a motion that would be to not be given, the co-op would not be given temporary or permanent easement rights on the city property. The motion would include the line to be installed. Ooh, can we change that to will meet all requirements of city sanitary sewer main from a materials and installation standpoint? Because right now it says shall. Is that the same thing?
Yeah, shall meet or will meet, whatever there is one extra word in there. Yep.
The co-op shall have plans and specs drawn up for the installation. Said plans and specs to be reviewed by, this says the city engineer. Would you guys want to change that to city water superintendent?
Yes.
For standards and other applicable standards utilized by the city regarding the installation, the line will not be installed until the city water superintendent has signed off on the proposed plans and the council has approved the plans. The line shall be installed at the sole expense of the co-op. Upon satisfactory installation testing, mandrel testing at the direction of the city water superintendent, The line will be dedicated to the city in writing, and the council will accept the dedication by resolution, and said line and related infrastructure becoming part of the city's sanitary sewer system. Once dedicated and accepted, maintenance, repair, replacement of the line shall be the responsibility of the city. And should there be one more put in there about the maintenance agreement, Doug? Maintenance bond?
That's up to the council if you want to do that. And the other thing I'd point out too, from some of the comments, I'm not sure, the question for the council would be whether you want to require the co-op to have plans and specs, or if you're comfortable with them just hiring a plumber to do it, basically, which I think was some of the earlier discussion.
But so do we want to put in the maintenance bond into the motion? Which means there's a warranty on it.
Yes.
Okay.
Brian, what do you usually see in Tipton, 2 years or?
Well, I think the latest ones have been 4.
Yeah, I've seen both. Yep.
And sorry, Doug, what was the last thing that you brought up?
The next issue was just in some of the things you reviewed, Mayor, we talked about the co-op would present plans, proposed plans for the water and superintendent. It's up, does the council want to require them to be, signed off on by an engineer on behalf of the co-op? Or can a plumber put a set of plans together so long as the city's water and superintendent signs off?
Yeah,
Mike, it's your motion. Are you all right with the city water superintendent signing off on the plans? All right.
So whatever we modify this language, that the co-op wouldn't require to have engineered plans and specs. They would just have to present something of an acceptable measure to your water superintendent.
Correct.
Okay?
All right, so everybody remember what is included in that motion?
Yes.
All right. Tim with the second. Helm and Tim, yep.
Postian,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Cummins,
No.
Hembry,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes. All right. Thanks, Doug.
You bet. I'll get an updated resolution over to Brian tonight.
All right. Next up is a resolution that would schedule a public hearing on the proposed sale of city-owned real estate that would be at 524 Cedar Street. Mr. Wagner?
Yeah. This is one that Doug prepared for us. It would be to set a public hearing at your next meeting. And that would be to complete the sale of the Rhinos property to the development group that's taking it over. The price is the cost of the replaced roof. So it's a bit over $33,000.
All right, so yeah, this is just the schedule of that hearing for our next meeting. Any questions about that? Is there a motion to set the public hearing? Cummins with the first?
Second.
And Helm with the second?
McNeil,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Postian,
Yes.
All right, so number 7 is the resolution authorizing the internal advance for funding urban renewal projects. Oh yeah, Melissa?
This resolution is related to the trip and drip, Highway 38 project costs, the hard acre costs that we submit to the county each year and then request TIP reimbursement for. Those requests are brought to the council and approved by motion. Our bond attorneys, though, have advised us that we should have an official resolution for those. So last council meeting, you approved the TIP indebtedness report for those specific amounts. So this resolution will also mirror that report, just to have it as an official document.
All right, any questions for Melissa? Is there a motion to approve this?
Motion.
Cummins with the first? Second. Helm with the second?
Cummins,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Postian,
Yes.
McNeil.
Yes.
All right, so now we actually, number 8 is a closed session. So if someone would move to go into closed session.
Motion.
Cummins with the first
Second.
and Helm with the second.
Hembry,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Poshton,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Cummins.
All right. Yep.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so we just came back into open session and I gotta make sure what number it's at. All right, so it's down to number 9, and the motion would consist of the wording that the council would direct legal counsel to move as directed during the closed session. Is there a motion?
I will make that motion.
Cummins with first,
Second.
Helm with second.
Poshton,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
Helm.
Yes.
All right, then that moves us down to the reports, mayor's report. Don't have anything this week. Then it goes to council. Committee, we don't have anybody here. City manager?
No.
No department heads. So that makes us to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Helm with first and Cummins with the second.
McNeil,
Yes.
Cummins, Hembry,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Poshton.
Yes.
All right, thank you, everyone. We are adjourned.